Out of Tennessee today, we have a research report titled Influence of Varieties of Hemp, Cannabis sativa, and Fertilization Rates on Damage Caused by Corn Earworm, Helicobacter. There are a few really interesting takeaways from this research report that I'm glad are being talked about more, and it's something that I've talked about in the past. The most salient takeaways from this research are that the addition of nitrogen, which is of course important for many metabolic processes related to defense, and seasonally late flower maturing varieties were associated with a decrease in damage from one of the worst pests in cannabis, the corn earworm moth, Helicobacter, often also referred to as a budworm moth. Now, for those with a little bit of plant physiology background, it's somewhat expected that nitrogen increases vegetative hemp growth and general biomass like it is in other plants, making developing flowers larger and more viable for budworm moths. However, in fact, a plant with greater nutrient uptake is, as is often said online, not necessarily better protected. Actually, people like to say that they are, but that's not always the case. It really depends on the organism in question. It's very hard to make a broad statement like that. This is because, as the vigorous growth is a good thing for the plant, it also signals a suitability in a lot of cases, because the vigorous growth makes the plant more luscious and aromatic in its vegetation. And organisms that are already very adapted to the defenses of a plant. See, many insect herbivores are actually specialists. That does allow them to be more effective against a particular plant. And in this case, Canna, a budworm moth, is actually going to be more attracted than less attracted. Interestingly, a close relative, the cotton bollworm Helicobacter, was less associated with corn due to higher nitrogen uptake, because this caused changes like physically strengthening the resulting corn husks and quickened the onset of silking, which is for reproduction, overall inhibiting larval access to corn kernels and therefore damage. In Greenville, Tennessee, at the Northeast Tennessee Ag Research and Education Center, cuts of hemp varieties available to the local area planted in the latest days of June 2019 and July 2020 and harvested in late October and early November that took a longer time to initiate flowering avoided budworm moth activity and the ensuing voracious larvae. According to recent research from 2019 published in the Journal of Integrated Pest Management, a grower in Colorado estimated $500,000 in damage from budworms in 2016, with similarly severe damage corroborated by one of the authors of this paper, citing complaints by growers in the state of Tennessee. Highly damaged plants from the 2019 trial included Bayox, cherry, cherry tart, Hawaiian haze, T1, and tangerine, while much lower damage was incurred by CBD therapy, Franklin, Late Sioux, and Super CBD, with T-Rex sustaining no damage. In the 2020 trial, Bliss Cherry Pure CBG and Siskiyou Gold No. 2 were most damaged, but Stout received very little damage, and both Green Giant and Siskiyou Gold No. 1 lacked any budworm damage. Damage profiles correlated with branch and floral cluster density, increasing with greater clustering. In summary, early flowering maturity time and the quicker accumulation of branch and flower density that came with it were the traits most associated with budworm damage. This could mean plants which flower later or generally produced sparser inflorescence are less susceptible to the larvae, particularly those with a large open canopy, necessitating larvae to move between the separated floral sections, with the trade-off being that of more late flowering buds with somewhat decreased cannabinoid and other metabolic content. Meanwhile, the converse seems to be that smaller condensed plants with a greater flower to foliage ratio and tighter branching or floral development sustained acute damage.